First of March, it's clear to me there's something that's uncomforting. Your body has a way with me, but I'm exactly where I wanna be. But I'm a long way from home.
I know your voice, I know your face. This is something I cannot replace. Give me hope and give me doubt. Well, I loved you then, but I don't love you now. I'm a long way from home. 'Cause we're a long way from home.
Now listen out, don't walk away.
I've got nothing more to say.
Hi, my name is Anthony Ragucci, and I traveled to Iceland because of a video game. Yeah, I understand. The very notion may raise an eyebrow for some people. It's taken me months to properly write and create this video because I fear being misunderstood. I fear being judged. I fear whatever words I write will be woefully insignificant to adequately express and capture exactly how I feel. But honestly, this project, it's more for me than it is for you. Death Stranding is a video game about connection. It's a game about isolation. It's an analysis on life, death, and the human condition. It speaks to the stages we all pass through, experiences we all share but cannot go through alone. It's a journey in which the player must create strands, form knots, build bridges, and unite as a people in order to succeed. Death Stranding takes place in a post-apocalyptic America. An event known as the Death Stranding has merged the worlds of the living and the dead, ravaging the natural world and fracturing modern civilization. The remaining survivors live isolated, either alone in their personal shelters or in one of the few remaining not cities, ad hoc communities representing what remains of society clinging to form a new order. The struggle to survive depends on porters to haul goods across the nation. Food, medicine, machines, books, and even pizza get from one place to another through the physical labor of a select few brave individuals. The main character and protagonist of Death Stranding, Sam, is one of those porters. The game's post-apocalyptic world is a near one-to-one recreation of the land of fire and ice, Iceland. Since Death Stranding's release in 2019, and especially in the light of our own forced isolation beginning in 2020, Hideo Kojima's message and themes within Death Stranding have resonated with me unlike any other form of art. An urge to travel and behold the land in which the game's narrative was rooted wasn't just something I wanted to do, it was something I had to do. It took time for me to work up the courage to undertake this trip alone. After a few friends and family members couldn't commit to the idea, I began to seriously consider flying to another country to experience a foreign environment, alien to everything I had known, by myself, all alone. In early 2023, I decided it was what I was going to do, and I began to make preparations for my first ever solo trip. Friday, September 22nd, 2023. I awoke and began a journal. I resolved to record what sights I saw, what sounds I heard, and how I felt for the entirety of the trip. Until now, this journal has remained closed. I am identifying this work as a video essay journal because I believe it to be an accurate description of how I would write these very words if I were keeping it in a journal, a raw, unfiltered display of emotion. While I won't recount the exact words I wrote during that week, I will allude to the emotions that surged through me. I remember being scared the morning of September 22nd. I was scared to drive to BWI alone. I was scared of flying to Iceland alone. I was scared of going through an alien wasteland alone. That's what Iceland felt like. A fantasy, an unreal reality, an alien wasteland. Saturday, September 23rd, 2023. I arrived at Keflavik Airport south of Reykjavik at around 6 a.m. GMT. In a haze from the melatonin I took during the flight, I made my way through a foreign terminal, got my things and some Icelandic krona or ISK, and went to retrieve my ride, an MG Marvel, an electronic vehicle. In the world of Death Stranding, gas-powered automobiles no longer exist, and only battery-operated utility vehicles are used to traverse an unstable landscape. In that spirit, I decided to take advantage of Iceland's EV infrastructure and trek across the country as Sam Porter Bridges trekked westward across America to find Amelie and reconnect our great country, as Die Hardman would say. I spent the rest of the day exploring Reykjavik before resting up at my hotel and preparing for the best meal of my life, a 20-course meal at a restaurant called Ox. Here, I established my first strands of the trip. I met two couples, one from Copenhagen and another from San Francisco. I would spend the next 5 hours getting to know them, but I particularly bonded with the Copenhagen couple. We started off with small talk, but over time our conversations grew more personal, complex, and intimate. Our minds engaged in a discussion of politics, education, jobs, and preconceived notions of one another's cultures and worldviews. Death Stranding is a game about connections, and one of my first interactions of the trip made the entire theme of my solo journey awaken as if it were jolted to life. Sunday, September 24th, 2023. I began my journey eastward, whereas Sam, however, ventured west across the country. Sam was tasked by Bridges and the United Cities of America. The only tie I had was to myself. With an ideology and a message, Sam and I shared a mission to reconnect people and places. Sam was reluctant with the idea of connection, but the morals of Death Stranding coursed through my spirit like blood through veins. After the physical distancing of COVID and the increasing ideological division between Americans, Death Stranding's message became more apparent to me as time went on after the game's initial release. In Death Stranding, Sam travels mostly by foot. Gameplay progression rewards you with electric vehicles like trikes and trucks to help you transport Sam from point A to B more efficiently. So I began my journey from Reykjavik to Foss Hotel in Glacier Lagoon. I had some stops to make on the way and some sights to see and enjoy, however. In Death Stranding, your travels are accompanied by occasional musical cues from a local Icelandic artist called Low Roar. These moments in game are special and work to create a specific tone. Your deliveries take on new meaning and perspective. Armed with a playlist of Low Roar, Silent Poets, Churches, and Ludwig Forsell's original score from the game, I created my own moments that reflected or paralleled what Kojima scripted in Death Stranding. Songs seemed to play at the perfect moment. I often found myself lost in the landscape and the music to the point I was brought to tears. I felt as if Kojima and his team had created similar experiences for themselves during their time in Iceland, and I wanted to recreate those moments of awe in-game, in real life. My solo drives were filled with introspection. Ideas freely flowed within my mind as I pondered the many facets of Death Stranding and took in what I saw with my very own eyes. During one of my drives, I had an epiphany. What if I didn't need to stop and charge my car? What if the road charged while I drove? I had this thought naturally during my week in Iceland without even really remembering that roads in Death Stranding charge your vehicles. Through collaboration with other players in the central region of the game, you can build roads to make deliveries easier. And while driving, the roads keep your vehicles charged. It's only when you're off-road that your vehicle's battery is used. Well, I did have my own nightmare situation that day driving. I was still figuring out my electric vehicle during that 5-hour drive eastward. These EVs have a learning curve that can only be overcome by several hours of experience behind the wheel. Just how far your battery will take you, when to charge, how to charge, charging port types, these things can only be mastered with practice and experimentation. Because of that ignorance, I found myself with a 6% battery remaining, which brought me a little under 30 kilometers before I would be stranded. My last chance was to charge on a fast charging port in a town called Vik. Vik in Icelandic means bay, and Vik is situated on the coast in a bay-like area. Kojima adopts a similar on-the-nose nomenclature with names of shelters, cities, distribution centers, and characters within the world of Death Stranding. For example, the Timefall Farm, Port Knot City, distribution center north of Mountain Knot. Mama, played by Margaret Qualley, is a mother, and Hartman, depicted by Nicholas Winding Refn and played by Darren Jacobs, is a character with a heart condition that sees him dead every 21 minutes only to be revived by a defibrillator 3 minutes later. Anyway, when I arrived at the charging station, there was a line of people waiting to use the lone machine that sat smack in the middle of two restaurants. A boy with his mother had trouble removing the cable from their car. When I saw they were having trouble, I immediately exited my car, inserted myself into the situation with two goals. 1, to see if I could help and lay claim to using the charger next. And 2, to win favor with the people in front of me by helping a boy and his mother in need. With some combined effort, the charger sprung free. Based on their accents, the family in line ahead of me appeared to be from Europe. They plugged their car in and went to grab a bite. I felt I couldn't leave the charger unattended, so I sacrificed a hot meal to sit in my car for an hour to make sure no one got in front of me. I made sure I had the app for this charging station, but it was giving me trouble, and I was unable to get it working. At this point, I began to panic. I tried calling roadside assistance in the event I was unable to charge, but it was late and I couldn't get a hold of anyone. I texted my travel agent, but they couldn't do much for me now. The sun set and the darkness swallowed my surroundings. Suddenly, it began to pour. I was alone, isolated, and needed help. The family came back out, ready to pack up and continue their travels, when I approached the father of the family, asking for assistance, asking for help. He told me his name was Carl. Carl helped me by setting up a hotspot so that I could use the charger, and I was able to load up the app and begin charging my car. I shook his hand with more appreciation than I had ever had for anyone in my life. The family drove off into the night, and it's probable I will never see them again. In Death Stranding, you can run into fellow porters who are willing to part ways with equipment and deliveries to assist you. Why? They simply want to help. Like the porters, Carl simply wanted to help. I mentioned to someone waiting in the line behind me all the trouble I had gone through. It took about 2 hours to charge the car, and I took off into the darkness for another 2 hours until I reached my hotel around midnight. I hastily ate a pre-made vending machine sandwich, a bag of chips, and a Gatorade, and I went to bed. The next morning, I got breakfast before my day began. I sat next to a couple from Lancaster, Pennsylvania, which is not far from where I live in Delaware County. I was grappling with those existential crises I was hoping for, but nothing was how I imagined. The next 5 days of my trip were driven by a simple itinerary: traveling, sightseeing, dining, and sleeping. And of course, my days were not without unique moments I could neither manufacture nor predict. On the morning of Monday, September 25th, 2023, I saw Jökulsárlón Glacier and Diamond Beach, one of the many black sand beaches of Iceland, heavily featured in Death Stranding's post-apocalyptic America, but more on those in a bit. I spent the afternoon ice climbing a glacier. On my way there, I realized how on and off the rain was in Iceland. You're constantly driving through systems, on and off, all day, every day. The rain is light but consistent, at least at this time of the year. And you guessed by now, Death Stranding is no different. In a majority of games, weather and day-night cycles are fast for the sake of making sure nothing lasts too long. Rarely are these systems in games one-to-one. Ignorantly, one might think the same of Death Stranding. In Death Stranding, timefall is a rain that ages anything it touches, and is a threat to not only any uncovered porter, but their cargo as well. If left out in timefall, cargo can rust and eventually be destroyed. Timefall systems come and go, just like rain systems in real life, along with the nuisances we're also accustomed to. During my ice climb, I met a girl named Casey from Colorado. We shared a few words along with smiles and glances on the bus. Of course, my heart fluttered a little bit as the limitless possibilities of what if crossed my mind. We reached the glacier and began our ascent to our hiking location, and I noticed she was lagging behind. I fell behind as well, offered her a helping hand, and began to converse with her further. I got to know her throughout the hike and climb, as she was also traveling solo. She was appreciative that I helped her, as she was getting tired and overheated. She was on the final leg of her trip, and as I would come to understand, that final day can be tough after a week of non-stop activity. She got a second wind, and once we got to the ice wall that we would scale, which was absolutely a test of will. I was relieved that she was able to scale the wall not once, but twice. And after the climb, we hiked on the glacier for a little while longer. She asked the guide to be escorted down the mountain back to the launch point of the excursion. I think the 2 times up did her in, and she left the group. I was hoping to see her back on the bus, but she was gone. I would later connect with her online, but in the moment, I was definitely sad our connection was so abruptly severed. Connections sometimes come and go. It's great we have ways to form bonds through the internet to reestablish connections that would be otherwise forever lost, which parallels Death Stranding's chiral network, the game's version of the inter or intranet. Tuesday, September 26, 2023. I began my travels back west, inching my way toward Reykjavik. Remember Vic from my charging story? I was back there visiting one of the island's most famous black sand beaches, Reykjavik. If you're a fan of Game of Thrones, you may recognize it. The rain was coming down that day for a majority of the morning, so when I arrived, there were very few people there. It was also cloudy almost my entire trip there, so I never got to see the northern lights. Perhaps something to check off for next time. I got my equipment and made my way to the shore. I spent a very long time on that beach. It seduced me. There was something so sad, so depressing, unnatural, and unnerving about it. I really didn't want to leave. Kojima and his team must have felt the same. Something here, in that sand, in the water, in the sky, was unique to this place. An ethereal, melancholic delusion. I turned on my playlist and embraced whatever it was. I stood, I sat, I looked, I captured that moment. Due to the rain, not a soul inhabited its shores. It was just the beach and me, forming a connection that I suspect will last until I depart this earth. One day we'll be gone, but the beach will remain. This emblematic bind was there 1,000 years ago, and 1,000 years from now, the waves will still crash upon its black sands. Another person will be entranced by the scene, as many have before, intrinsically tied by experience to form a new type of connection, one you cannot see, but deeply feel. I spent the rest of the day exploring a naturally forming ice cave in what felt like the absolute middle of nowhere. It's a shame the weather was the way it was because I definitely didn't get the full experience. Afterwards, soaked to the gills, I made my way for my hotel where I'd shower, eat, and rest my head. Wednesday, September 27th, 2023. I spent the day driving parts of the Golden Circle, a 190-mile stretch of natural sights inside and out of Thingvellir National Park. I saw Gullfoss, Geyser, which is where the word geyser originates. While Death Stranding has its fair share of waterfalls, there are no geysers in the game. I'd be interested to see some in DS2 and wonder how they could be interacted with for fun gameplay. Maybe they can be used to launch oneself into the air and reach higher places. If there's someone who could make it beyond interesting, it's Kojima. During my tour of Thingvellir, I went on a snorkeling excursion to end my afternoon. That night, while dining in my hotel, I found myself seated next to a father and a daughter. I first thought that Iceland was an odd place for a father-daughter trip, but who was I to judge? I ordered a glass of wine and Arctic char. And when you're dining on your own, it's hard not to be tuned into what's going on around you. So I overheard the father and the daughter going back and forth enough to realize that they were Australian. I'd encountered all sorts of folks on this trip, but I didn't think I would come across anyone from down under. I noticed the waitstaff and management going to the table quickly and speaking with the father. The manager even spoke with the daughter, and I thought she was just being nice. The pair got their dinner and drinks, and the minute my meal was served, I locked eyes with the father. It was none other than Thor himself, Chris Hemsworth. I was internally shook. I took out my phone and texted my friends and pleaded with them to believe me. The Hemsworth ate quickly, and by the time I was halfway through my meal, they had gotten up and left. I didn't ask for a picture or say anything to Chris. A slight head nod as he passed by. He may or may not have even noticed. But that was fine. I had a moment without disturbing his meal with his kid. The table behind me and the waitstaff knew who Chris was, but no one else did. It was a once-in-a-lifetime moment. I happened to be at a certain place at a certain time to witness something few would. How do I relate this to Kojima? Something about connection? I don't know. Maybe Chris will be in a Kojima project someday. You decide, viewers. Let me know in the comments. Thursday, September 28th, 2023. The final day. I was making my way back to Reykjavik, but I had first 2 stops. The first of which being Carrid Crater. No doubt one of the inspirations behind Death Stranding's void outs. The size of the crater is deceiving. It's big, but while you're there or even looking at a picture or a video of it, it seems small. Perspective changes a lot of things. Some see Carrid as just a simple hole in the ground, and others view it as a massive symbol of what's come before. Some see Death Stranding as a walking simulator or an Amazon delivery game, but others perceive it on a deeper level, as an experience unlike anything that has come before or since. After Carrid, my final activity of the trip was relaxation at Blue Lagoon, a naturally occurring hot spring, one of the 25 wonders of the world. In Death Stranding, you can rest up at one of many hot springs that appear in the world to recharge yourself in literal and figurative ways. Blue Lagoon is one of the many hot springs in Iceland, but it's definitely the most famous. The place is pretty damn cool. You check in, you change into your swim gear, and enter the lagoon. Grab a drink and a variety of face masks to cleanse the dirt and grime away. I spent roughly an hour and a half in the lagoon, but you can spend as much time as you want, though for obvious reasons you'll likely be good by the time you hit the 2-hour mark. Nothing worse than pruny hands, right? After being refreshed and relaxed, I returned to the same hotel I started at in Reykjavik, grabbed a famous Icelandic hot dog for dinner, did some shopping, and crashed early to prepare for my flight home. Friday, September 28th, 2023. This trip was a success, but there's always something that goes wrong. Just like many of Sam's deliveries, even if you plan it perfectly, life causes you to trip and fall. In the end, it's about picking yourself up and keep on keeping on. I wholeheartedly understand what Kojima saw in this place, why it became a post-apocalyptic America. Everything was designed for a reason. Nothing was done randomly. All the game's tools have a purpose and inspiration. It's wild that this place could have been turned into a game with an American spirit driven by a desire to reconnect with your fellow man. In a world where we are so connected, I ask a simple question. Just how real is it all? Social media, Amazon, the internet, these create a convenient wall for us not to be ourselves, for us to be a different version of ourselves. For example, I am in therapy, and I refuse to do therapy virtually. I don't think things I've talked about would have come out the same. In person, there's a connection between you and the therapist that I really enjoy. A screen would just dilute the experience. It's sad people don't want to put in the effort into connecting with others, regardless of the form. The entire trip has been like Sam's journey west, creating knots and strands with peoples and places he encountered. Iceland needs roads to get across the country so the farmer can sell his milk to the coffee shop. It needs roads so the tourists can trek from place to place and bring their diversity and money to the region that would look very different without both. Like Amelie says, humans aren't made for living alone. They're supposed to come together to help one another. And if we as a people can't do that, if we can't reconnect, That's what we need right now, not to stand apart, but to come together. The following is my final entry in my journal for the trip that I wrote on my plane ride back home. I'd like to share it in its entirety. An hour left on my flight home. Happy to be returning after such a freeing trip. I feel I've accomplished something here. Understand Death Stranding further? Yes. Something else though. I believe wholeheartedly in the path in which I've walked, the road I've laid, and the pace in which I've decided to walk that road are all my doing. Even in my deepest pain, trauma, loneliness, yearning, lust, and want to understand, I've always lived this life by my own will. Is this fate? I'm not sure I really believe in fate. But what I do believe is what a man's actions and words represent. Is that all any of us really have? A character, a persona, a mask even? If that's what a person desires? For me, there's only one path. One that is unabashedly my truth. I didn't need this trip to show me that. But what it did was show me the lengths I'm willing to go to be me and to celebrate that. This is my final entry. Tomorrow is in my hands. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate your time and attention. This video essay was a huge labor of love, passion, of blood, sweat, and tears. A lot of time and effort went into this. And I really appreciate if you're listening to this and you got all the way through and you really enjoyed what you heard, because I did have a lot of points making this video where I didn't think it was going to come off great or be conveyed well, and I even talk about that in the beginning of the video. And one of the people I have to thank for that is Adam Bivens. He helped structure the script and helped me edit it and make it sound better and more concise, and you know, use better words and things like that. You know, he really helped kind of bring the words to life that you heard through the mic. So shout out to Adam. Another Adam Online, definitely helped me shape what this video was going to be. He went to Iceland a few years back and he did a series called Adventures in Kyrauti. Similar vibe to my video, seeing Strands, but a little bit different. You know, he takes a bit of a different approach at it. But if you enjoyed what you watched here and you haven't seen Adam Online's video, Adventures in Kyrauti, go check that out. And last two shout outs to Sam Proxidist Green and my cousin Chaz Squillace. They helped give me some feedback on my final edits of the video. Not all their feedback made it into the final edit. Some stuff I was willing to do. And as I told my cousin Chaz, by the time, you know, it's like, I'm at the point where I just wanted to be finished. I've been working on this for a year. The script took the beginning of most of the year. The voiceover took most of the spring. And then the editing took literally all summer. I got a girlfriend, a new job, and I've been on like plenty of trips all within that time. So much has happened since I went on this trip. And I was even editing footage I took a literal year ago, a few days ago, as I'm recording this. And as I was finishing up, it was pretty crazy to like now, as this come out, be in full circle of like, the last few days of editing were when I went on the trip. And I wish I recorded so much more for this video. It's kind of hard to realize how much footage you're going to need. Not that I didn't have enough, but I just could have recorded so much more with so much more intent. I've never been really good with that, especially when you're alone and you're not there to just record yourself like walking around and like doing things. You know, it can be kind of weird, but if I could go back and in hindsight, I would record so much more. But then again, you don't really have all the time in the day, so I guess it is what it is, right? And I just wanted to comment on Death Stranding 2, because I wanted to like stay away from that topic in the video, but like Death Stranding 2's motto of "should we have connected" is such a like antithesis to this like whole video. I'm kind of like really nervous to see like what Kojima has to say with just that tagline, and should we have connected is like the whole theme of the original game just gonna kind of be thrown out the window. Like, I'm really nervous but interested to see what he does with DS2 and sort of what it's gonna become and how it's gonna innovate on, you know, the formula that really didn't need a sequel. I don't think anyone wanted a sequel to Death Stranding, but you know, I think if Kojima has a story to tell, he's going to tell it. I just hope he doesn't, you know, make sequels and, you know, stuff forever and does new projects. Yeah, so if you like what you heard here, I do have a few other video essays on the channel. One about Batman v Superman, Tron Legacy, Assassin's Creed. Video essays come out very sparsely, so I would say subscribe, but you know, they kind of happen when they happen. But if you really want to follow me, go check out my podcast, Delco Nerd Network, anywhere podcasts are found, on YouTube, social media, wherever. That's really where my creative energy is really going into. I host Delco Nerd Network with my co-host Chris Trio, and we talk about everything nerdy, video games, movies, TV shows, tons of Kojima conversations. You know, if it's nerdy, we're most likely talking about it. So if you like me and you want to see more of what I'm doing, please go over to Delco Nerd Network and subscribe, follow us, and we hope to see you soon. Again, thank you for watching, guys. I'll see you soon.